Good afternoon to you, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, here with your hurricane outlook and discussion for Tuesday, November the 7th, 2017. Hey, I wanted to show you this from Dr. Phil Klotzbach, Colorado State University, has put together a couple of interesting charts and graphs that I want to point out, and just to kind of show you where things are, in case you wondered, how does this season rank? It's interesting. Obviously, the clear winner, and especially in modern times, is 2005, with a total of 28 named storms that year. We are at 17 named storms now. 2005 also had the most named storm days. Obviously, that would be days throughout the hurricane season where we had named storms. 126 days. The hurricane season is 183 days long. Well, 2005 was well outside of the normal hurricane season, so that's an interesting anomaly in and of itself. Remember, it went on into January of 2006. The most hurricanes that we've ever had in a single season would also be 2005 at 15. This year we have had 10 hurricanes, and 1995 we had tying with 1893 for the most hurricane days. So that's interesting that 2017 we didn't have as many hurricane days, so we're not in the top record of that for all time. This year we've had 6 major hurricanes, which is, well above the average, obviously, and that's pretty close to the record of 7 in a single season, being 1961, the year of Hurricane Carla, and of course 2005. That shows up a lot. The major hurricane days, 19 and a quarter, and the record is 1961 with 24 and a half, and so we're close. We're definitely in the top margins there. And then the accumulated cyclone energy, think of this as the number that the basketball team scores in a game, so to speak, or the football team, whatever. This is the number, the overall energy, points for the year by energy expended wind-wise. It's not surge, it's not damage to property. It's what we call the accumulated cyclone energy. It is a metric based on wind energy alone, and that's at 224, so we're not that far off the record of 1933. And just to point out, at the risk of getting into a climate change, global warming brouhaha, note that some of these records that are the all-time records are well before any of this climate change, global warming stuff has come about. Just pointing it out. It's an observation. 1893, 1961, 1961 again, 1933, all this modern stuff, 1995 on, is within the active era of the Atlantic multi-decadal oscillation, when the Atlantic normally supposed to warm anyway. Just something to think about. There's probably some warming going on. I wouldn't doubt that. But to say that it is all of mankind's fault, so to speak, I just don't think there's enough data. Now, that's all I'm going to say about that for right now. All right? Comment as you may. This is an interesting graph, and boy, I tell you what, for statistics and putting these things together, you just can't beat Dr. Phil Klotzbach. What a gem of a scientist, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. A great person. I know him personally, and it's just neat to see him embrace all of this the way he does, and he puts this information out, shares it readily on social media. I really like this because it shows you the distribution of how everything went this year, and you can kind of infer, obviously Arlene was before the season started, and then we had weak Brett, short-lived Cindy, Dawn was weak and short-lived, etc. And then everything started to ramp up, and then we hit a lull, and then there was a ramping up again, also in September. I'm going to show you where I'm going with this. And of course we had Ophelia, Philippe, etc. Nate was in there. But it's interesting. Look at how that matches this. It's not too far off the average, what do we call this? The climatology. And, I show this often, especially as the season gets started. So the early weaker systems were in this part of this year. This is a distribution going back 100 years or so. Okay, so and this would get updated, I guess, every year if somebody did. And the peak, of course, is near September 10th. And what did we have this year on September 10th? Let's go back to this one. Aha! It was Irma, which made landfall, you guessed it, on September the 10th. So this year closely followed climatology, just like this graph. It's not going to be an exact match, obviously, but look at that. Isn't that rather uncanny? You had the secondary peak and the tertiary peak here. Very interesting. This kind of stuff, I like seeing this kind of thing. It helps you understand what happened in a different sense. We talk about the damage and the fatalities and the human toll on the man-made environment, and that is obviously big. But looking at it, how does it matter from a scientific perspective? And we're just starting to be able to digest that and create information from that. And that's what I'm going to be working on myself over the next several weeks and months, because we have a lot of data that we collected in our field missions this year. Not going to be collecting any data to segue into this. Tropical storm Rina. It was not much of a stretch for me to predict yesterday that it would become a tropical storm today. I think it was obvious looking at the modeling and where it was located and how pretty much everything this year has overperformed against the background state, so to speak. And this is no different. 45-mile-per-hour wind in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, not going to bother anybody except shipping interests. As a tropical entity, it will die away and become post-tropical up here over the northern Atlantic, and it really won't be an issue. It just is our 17th named storm of the year. And this is what the visible satellite animation shows. Not very well organized, as you would expect for November the 7th, but that being said, that's some pretty healthy convection right there. It's not very deep, and it's not, ridiculously intense. Look at that little swirl right there. Isn't that interesting, that little vortex that forms? Watching these cloud animations, I tell you what, it is fascinating, and it's all part of being a weather geek. And also, you can see this wind shear coming in, injecting stronger upper-level winds, displacing the deeper cloud tops and the thicker clouds themselves away from that center of circulation. In the beginning part of the year, you get a lot of wind shear. In the middle part of the season, it typically should die down, especially in the absence of El Nino, and that's exactly what we had this year. And of course, once you get towards the end of the season, which is where we are here, the wind shear starts to pick up, so the frequency of events becomes less, and the intensity of said storms when they do form also becomes less. So taking a look at the GFS over the next 7 days, the 5,000 foot level, 850 millibar vorticity, there's Rina as it moves around this ridge of high pressure out over the Azores Islands. The energy, the leftover energy, not the system itself as a tropical cyclone, but just sort of the leftover energy. If you track this with me here, you see it goes around that ridge, and then it comes up into the westerlies, what we call the jet stream over here. And then, yes, some of that energy will impact the British Isles as a leftover non-tropical area of low pressure. All right, so watch out for that at about there's 24 hours coming up on 36, 48, that's 2 days. There's 3 days. So between 3 and 4 days, what was Rina, some of that energy will end up as the leftovers of Rina for parts of the UK and vicinity. So be ready. Some inclement weather headed your way. Anything else brewing down in the deep tropics? The answer is no. You don't see any impulses coming off Africa anymore. That time has come and gone, thank goodness. And, not too bad of a period over the U.S. We will start to focus on more wintry weather. There is an off-season component to what I do. As I said yesterday, we don't just turn the lights out and shut everything off until next June. I wait for these potent winter storms that eventually will form and impact the northeast coast of the U.S. They call them nor'easters, blizzards, whatever. And I figure there'll probably be a couple of those this coming winter, if not more. And I will be out testing equipment. We got some new things to test. It's always hurricane season in terms of what's coming next, right? We always have to be ready. It's kind of like a college sports or NFL team or whatever your favorite sport of choice, or maybe you're not into sports, but you have your big season. You think about the Astros. Here's a good analogy. They won the World Series. Great. That's awesome. But I guarantee you the owners, the management, everybody, the players, and even the fans in Houston know that what happened this year does not have any bearing what's happening next year. They got to still go out and get it. That starts with a lot of work in the offseason by the front office, making sure the players are there, making sure the salaries are there, etc. And when spring training comes, they got to work hard if they want to have a repeat as world champions. And so if we want to be able to do well next hurricane season, no matter what happens, it could either be busy or it could be a big lull. You just never know. We want to be ready. And so we use the off season to do that. More on that coming up. So a little teaser. On November 30th, I will have a special live end of the season broadcast that I will affectionately refer to as Day 183, where we will go and look at how far we have been from Day 1 on June 1st. Some of it will be, I don't want to say painful, but it's going to bring back some painful memories. But we're also going to look ahead to the future and where we go from here, not only from our perspective, but also in the preparedness realm. What did we learn? What should we have learned? And how can we do better? There are a couple of hot topics that I want to talk about in this particular broadcast on the last day of the season, and I'll wait and bring that up then. But that's coming up. I'll talk about it more, and in terms of exactly what time. It'll be live, it'll be on YouTube, and it'll be commercial free, so anybody can join in the discussion. They can watch live or later on the archive as we wrap the season up and begin the 6 months of off season, where there is a lot of work to do, believe me. All right, that's all I've got for this afternoon, however, so thank you very much for tuning in. As always, I appreciate it. I'm Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, and I will be back with more for you tomorrow.